Hey guys, what's up, how's it going? My name is Robin. Welcome back once again for the channel, and in today's video I'm going to be sharing with you guys 5 big mistakes that I made inside my TFSA when I first started investing. I think it'd be helpful to share these tips with you guys so you guys don't make the same mistakes that I made. So as most of you guys know who already watched the channel, I've been investing for a couple years now. I'm still pretty close to being a beginner, but I'm pretty experienced and I've definitely learned a lot of things along the way. So in today's video, I'm going to share with you guys some stories about how I started investing and some of the mistakes I might have made in the beginning when I first started with my TFSA. But at the end of the day, I just want you guys to know that it's okay to make mistakes. It's okay to kind of screw up here and there. It's all part of learning how to invest. My best advice I could give you guys is to take things slow, go one day at a time, and slowly over time you woke up. And if you do make a mistake, it's okay. It happens sometimes. Just do the best you can and continue going forward. So I'm going to jump in the video really quickly right off the hop, and we'll show you guys the number one tip, or the number one mistake that I made when I first started investing with the TFSA was that I actually used it, and this is a very common one, is I actually used it as a savings account and not really as an investment account. And this is because, you know, when I turned 18, it was the first year that the TFSA was announced. And I remember going into the bank at that time, and I remember my grandparents actually talking to me to open up a tax-free savings account. And this is an account that I basically used, just kind of throw in some money, maybe a couple $100 here and there, just like my extra money I would save. And this is kind of how I was taught, and my family wasn't very financial literate or anything like that, so wasn't really, nobody really did investing, nobody really taught me any of these things growing up. So I used the TFSA as a savings account for next to almost 10 years later. It wasn't until I kind of finally learned about investing and I was like, hey, you know what, you can actually use the TFSA account to invest and you'll make a much better returns, and it's actually much smarter just to use a regular everyday savings account as like maybe your emergency fund or something like that. So my biggest mistake was not basically taking advantage of the TFSA, but also using it as a savings account and not as an investment account. And this is probably one of the biggest mistakes I see people make, and it's definitely one of the biggest ones I made. To give you guys an idea of the difference between the two, you know, a traditional savings account might give you right now, especially in today's environment, a savings rate of around 1% or so. Now with stocks, you might get anywhere between 4 to 5 to 10% gain per year. So you can see that everything inside of a TFSA, especially if it's Canadian stocks, and even if it is foreign stocks, for the most part, I would say about 90% of your investments are going to be tax-free, right? The only thing you might pay is on the dividend income from foreign investments. But, you know, to get like that 5 to 10% range, that's 100% tax-free. It's such a big difference than having your money sitting there earning like a 1% interest or something like that, if it's even going to be that in today's current interest rate. So that's my first tip and the biggest mistake I made when it comes to investing with my TFSA. The second mistake I made when I first started with investing, and you guys might remember this when I first started the YouTube channel, is I kind of got into REITs, and I still like REITs. And if you guys aren't familiar, REITs are basically like real estate investments trusts. They're kind of like, imagine buying a stock of a real estate based company, and then every single month you get some dividend income, which is basically like, you know, if they own like shops, or if they own malls, or if they own something like that, and they have clients that pay them rent, you're getting a portion of that money there. And that's what really attracted me about REITs. Now, the problem with some stocks and whatnot is that depending on what stocks you have, they get taxed either good or bad. You know, REITs are one of those things that get taxed a lot. You get taxed on the stock appreciation. So if you get capital gains, you get taxed, but you also get taxed on the dividend income, and it doesn't qualify a lot of the time for the benefits that you would normally get for Canadian dividend stocks. So when you have REITs outside of a TFSA, you get taxed a lot. So I didn't really know this in the beginning. So I had my REITs in a personal account, and I ended up paying a lot more money than if I had them sitting inside my TFSA. So, you know, just knowing your asset allocation and kind of doing research about what stocks to hold inside your TFSA and the different types is very important. Now, at the end of the day, Canadian stocks are pretty much 100% tax-free for the most part. I would say like pretty much all Canadian stocks are tax-free unless there's something I don't know about. Inside of a TFSA, you'll get dividends, which will be 100% tax-free, as well as stock appreciation. But keep in mind, it is important to have diversification, and US stocks are very nice to hold inside your TFSA. So, and we'll talk about that later on. But, you know, in the beginning, my asset allocation, I wasn't too familiar with what stocks to hold, and I had REITs outside my TFSA. So, you know, you might make these mistakes, you might not, and depending on your portfolio, eventually at some point in time, you will fill up your TFSA, and you'll have to put some stocks inside a personal account. But in the beginning, you know, make sure you do your research, make sure you know what stocks are benefiting you. Otherwise, you're just paying unnecessary tax, and make sure you max out that TFSA ASAP. So that would be my second tip, and probably the biggest mistake I made. I just had to pay a bunch of extra money in taxes that I really didn't have to pay. Now, the third tip I'm going to share with you guys, and third mistake I made, was not keeping track of my contribution limits. Now, Like I mentioned before, you know, I've turned 18 at the very first year that they opened up the TFSA, and then I didn't do any investing until about a decade later. So I had pretty much max contribution room for the most part, and I kind of knew that I had about $70,000 or so in contribution room, and I wasn't anywhere near there a couple years ago when I first started investing. So in the beginning, I was kind of like, you know what, I'll just throw some money in, and when I get close to that number, I'll double check and make sure, you know, I hit my contribution room. Now, I never went over my contribution room, although I do see a lot of people make this mistake, and I think they make the mistake because they just don't track it along the way. So I would say, you know, start right from the beginning, and this is something I wish I did because it just would have made things easier for me, but get a spreadsheet, you know, start tracking your deposits. I know a lot of online services like Wealthsimple, for example, they do let you track the net deposits of your account so you can quickly see how much deposits you made. But you know, it's important to kind of track it and just kind of have a good idea where you're at, because you don't want to go over it because you will get hit with fees. And I see a lot of people over contribute to their TFSA. Maybe they don't understand the rules, so it's important to understand what constitutes as a contribution. And you know, and if you take money out, can you put it back in? It's important to learn those different things and whatnot. And the basics of the account is any kind of money you put in counts as a contribution. So if I deposit $500 inside my TFSA, that's a contribution. Any money earned within the account from stocks or dividends, generally speaking, does not count as a contribution. And if you withdraw money outside of your account, you can redeposit that same amount 1 year later as contribution room. So once again, it does get a little bit confusing, so it is important to do your research and learn, but make sure you don't go over your contribution room, and definitely just get a simple spreadsheet, and every single time, you know, maybe put your limit of your TFSA contribution, and then every single time you put like $100 or something into your account, just kind of subtract that from your total, and that will allow you to not only motivate yourself as you get closer to maxing out your TFSA, which should be each investor's or most beginner investors' #1 goal, but also just to kind of allow you to see your contribution room as time goes on. Now, my fourth mistake I made, and this is a common one I see as well, is only putting Canadian stocks inside my TFSA. And I did this for a long time. It wasn't until I think about towards the end of last year, I believe it was, where I started putting more US stocks inside my TFSA. And the main reason why is, you know, a lot of people say, well, you want the tax benefits of Canadian stocks, and it is important to hold Canadian stocks inside your TFSA. In fact, I hold mostly Canadian stocks, but I do also hold US stocks. And I think US stocks are important because they have tremendous growth. And even though you will pay a small amount on the dividend, you'll pay 15% of all the dividend income for US stocks, or pretty much any foreign stock for that matter inside of a TFSA. If you have growth-based US stocks, you won't be paying that much in regards to taxes. And most growth-based US stocks have tremendously good returns. If you look at most things like the S&P 500 or some of those other funds, they have pretty good returns, and it's worth kind of suffering that 15% dividend yield, that kind of cut that you'll take to get the massive stock appreciation that will be 100% tax-free. So don't think just because something's getting taxed inside your TFSA that it's not worth putting inside. It just really depends on the type of stock it is. So if you're going for US growth-based stocks, with low dividend yield, definitely stick those inside your TFSA. Like I said, S&P 500 or something like that is a great fund to start off with. But if you're going for US dividend-based stocks, you might want to put those in your RRSP or something similar, because like I mentioned, they will get taxed on the dividend. And if you do have a good high dividend yield, that 15% might be a little bit more than somebody who has like a dividend yield that's like maybe 1% or less. So it's important to understand those basic things. But yeah, just kind of understanding that, you know what, you don't always have to just put Canadian stocks, and it can definitely benefit you to put, you know, some US stocks or even some international stocks, just to have a little bit of diversification, but also to maybe get more gains than what the Canadian stock market traditionally gets back to you. So definitely think about that. And that was the fourth mistake that I made inside my TFSA. Now, last but not least, the fifth and final mistake that I made inside my TFSA is basically, and I kind of touched upon this earlier in the video, is not understanding how important the TFSA is to basically making income as you get older. So I always say #1 goal I always kind of prescribe to most beginner Canadian investors is to think about maxing out your TFSA ASP with just some good quality Canadian blue chip stocks or some good quality ETFs or something like that, just to get that ball rolling, because the sooner you max it out, all the income inside your TFSA is going to be 100% tax free. And just think about this, you know, you could run this with a calculator or something like that. You can go on Google and look up a dividend calculator or investment return calculator, whatever you guys want to do kind of thing, and just think about it. You know, if you maxed out your TFSA today, or if you put like X amount of money inside your TFSA, that money will grow year by year. Think about it, like a couple years from now, 5 years from now, 10 years from now, right? If once you get that TFSA up to a higher amount and it keeps growing, all that income will be tax-free, and that will basically save you money in taxes. It'll make you more money in the end, and it's such something that people just don't take advantage of. So 100% max out your TFSA, put some good quality stocks in there, get those returns going. Just to show you guys an example, I basically built a TFSA completely from scratch last year in 2020. Over the course of 2020 to 2021, where we are now, that portfolio is now almost at $4,000. That is 100% tax-free, and will just keep growing and growing as time goes on. So you guys can see the value of that. It does add up at the end of the day, and the government already takes a lot of our money as it is. You don't want to be giving them more money as it is. I mean, you might as well just save up and take advantage of this stuff as much as you can, because you know they'll try to screw you out as much money as they possibly can. So you don't want to be paying more money than you have to the government. Guys, that's it for today's video. Hope you guys liked this I hope you guys enjoyed this quick little video, and if you guys did like the video, please sure to give it a big thumbs up. I tried to focus on some of the big mistakes I made inside my TFSA, and I wanted to take a different approach than some of the other guys do on YouTube when it comes to doing some TFSA videos. So I know there's still a lot of questions that aren't answered, and I do plan on doing a more thorough video in the future about the TFSA that's more focused on the beginner aspect of it and whatnot. But anyways, guys, I hope you guys enjoy this video. Let me know what you guys think in the comments. Take care, and if you guys have any questions, let me know in the comments, and I'll see you guys later.